Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our grade 4 coding class for today, 29 July 2020. I hope you guys had a wonderful afternoon and that you guys learned quite a bit during the course of today. Today, we are going to be looking at changing variables. We've had, I think it was a couple of lessons ago or last week sometime, we quickly looked at variables, but a constant variable. Now today we are going to look at changing variables. Now I have to tell you guys before we even start, this one might be a little confusing. This is quite a tricky lesson. So you guys will have to pay close attention. Otherwise, it's just going to go meow over your head. So it is a bit of a tricky one, but I'm sure we will be able to manage and work through it together because we are going to see some different blocks being introduced today. And yes, we have to pay close attention. Guys, and then I just quickly, before we move on, introduce myself to those of you that are joining us first time. My name is Mike Hellenace, and I'm sure you guys will have a lot of fun. We've been learning so much the last couple of weeks. It is amazing to see how much we've done, and I'm so impressed by the code and the homework items I've been receiving, and I want to give a special shout. I unfortunately had some problems with my email, so I couldn't download everything yesterday, but I think it was Zoe that sent me her puzzle or her pattern that she designed yesterday. I will make sure it gets included in tomorrow's slides. So I just want to tell her very, very well done. And I think there was one, yeah, it was Zoe. Yes, it was Zoe that sent me her pattern. And she made a beautiful pattern with some ghosts and peacocks. So that was quite cool. Guys, so let's get our teeth stuck into changing variables. I do have a couple of slides again that we have to go through. Just otherwise, if we just go through just code.org, we might just get lost, and I can just explain a few things better with the slides because I could isolate certain aspects and put them in my slides so we can focus on those things specifically. So let's just quickly look at our objectives with changing variables. It is to identify areas where they can use variables to modify quantities during runtime. So here we are going to be changing values while we run our code. So it is going to get a bit tricky, but we'll go through that step by step. And then examine code to find places where variables can be substituted for specific values. Okay, there again, we are going to see if they give us a variable, but the variable can actually be substituted by just a specific value. We don't want to make things overly complicated. So as far as possible, if we can just use simple code or assigned value, a specific value, we rather want to do that because we don't want to add in all bunch of different code and math, because you will see today we will have some math blocks as well. We're going to start including math blocks into our code. So I hope you guys all love math. Luckily, it's easy math for now. So, but I hope you guys like math because we're going to see some math blocks as well. Okay, guys. So what is the purpose of all these variables? Okay, we don't always know the value. A value is going to be before, what a value is going to be before we begin our program. Okay, sometimes values change while your code is running. this lesson will illustrate how code with changing values can be helpful. Okay, so that is the purpose for today. And then just quickly go through our vocabulary. Remember, what is a variable? It is a label for a piece of information used in a program. Okay, and those are the things that change all the time. A variable is also something that changes or something that can change. So here we will put a label to it for a piece of information used in the program. And then we're also looking at a constant. Now, this is the kind of variables that we have looked at in one previous lesson before. And that is where a variable used throughout a program that never changes value. So that's quite easy because we assign a value and that value will stay the same throughout the entire code. Those are quite cool and nice to use. We don't have to worry about, once we've set it, it stays that way. Okay, guys, now here we have our toolbox. Now we can see inside our toolbox, notice that blocks now have a new way to enter numbers. We are not just going to type it in. They call these little math blocks or number blocks, and we will just be able to drag them in. We can still change the value inside. So these are now just a little bit different. We will drag in values with these little puzzle blocks. Okay, so these math blocks can be pulled out and moved around. So we can move around where we want. Okay. Now, guys, we also have to ask ourselves, what are variables or what are variable blocks? Okay. First thing, variables are placeholders for information that can change. Now we can see here by this block that I've put here, or that I've put here in the slide, that's to illustrate. We can also call our variable anything we want, okay? So we can name them just like our functions. We can name our variables and we can assign values to them. And here we can see we've got an assigned value of 2. Okay, so variables are placeholders for information that can change. Having a placeholder makes it possible to write a program even when you won't know all of the values until later. So we can write everything beforehand, and then only later we can assign certain values. Okay, so we can also, if we know a certain number of steps, we can name our variable anything we want. Okay, it's exactly like we would have named our function. So if we want to perform an action, or we're working with, if we're drawing pictures and we're working with certain lengths, we can assign our variable, we can just name it length, and then in that length we can make it 50. Think about our artist. If we know all our lines throughout the entire picture is going to be 50, our jump, then we can make length 50. And then every time our artist moves, he will draw a length of 50. Then you can make another variable, jumps. If we know that all our jumps are going to be 100, we can assign a value to jumps. And every time we use that variable, it will be 100. So we can set distances and values before. And if it were to change, then you can only, instead of changing the value throughout your entire code, we can come up here and just change the value to what we have assigned up here. Okay. So I hope you guys understand that. Okay, so I'm just waiting for the next slide to come up here. Now, a new category for variables will be available in our toolbox, and there we can see it. Okay, so there's our toolbox, and inside our toolbox, you'll see two new options. You will see variables, and you will see math. Okay, we'll see variables and math. And if we want to see what is available inside that, there we go, there's our variables. Variables are placeholders, you have to remember that, for information that can change. Now look up here in the example I gave you guys. We can see beforehand we had a variable, we called it gather, and we assigned a value of 2. Okay, so now every time we use it inside our code, don't get confused by this now, because if you read the code, it can be a little confusing. So we see repeat gather times do collect row. Okay, so now they've even made it more difficult for us because they've even thrown in functions here. Okay, so guys, keep an open mind here. Is this gather inside the repeat block? All that you have to see there is 2. Forget about the word gather. Just imagine a 2. Why do I imagine a 2? Because if I go to the start of my code, I can see here set gather to 2. It's almost like when we assign a color to a line. If we, before we do the code, we set color, and we set the color to red or blue or black, whatever color we would like. Okay, so now we've set gather, a word, and we've assigned a value to gather, and that is 2. So in this block, we can see repeat 2 times, do collect row. So that is how it's going to read. Repeat 2 times, do collect row. What makes this nice, let me change my pointer to a pen quickly so I can write on my screen. What makes this nice is if we have gather in here and we want to change it, our program changes, and we don't want to go and change the value in every repeat, in every loop, in everything that where we've used a value. If those values are all the same and we don't want to go and change it everywhere, you just come up here, you just change the value here once, and then it will change wherever you have used this puzzle piece, this gather puzzle piece. It will change that placeholder to the new value that you have added everywhere in your code. Okay, so that is a nice thing to make changes quickly. If you keep a placeholder, you name it something, and then if values were to change, let's say I'm working with different people and everybody's age is different. Maybe I will make this variable, I'll call it age. And everywhere in the code I use age. I'm not going to use that specific person's age. I'm going to assign his value over here. So let's say, for example, Zoe. I see Zoe's name in my chat box. Zoe is, for example, let's say Zoe is 8 years old. I will assign 8. And every time I use age down here, it will use the value of 8. But then comes, let's say, then comes Zivan. Zivan is 12 years old, and I want to do the code for him, but it needs to calculate his age. I will just come here, change it to 12, and everywhere I've used age in my calculations, it will change it to 12. or if I see who else is in my chat today. Wanda is, if I see her and she's maybe 15, I will just come up here and change that to 15. So it's a nice thing to know. Okay, it's a nice thing. And then maybe Anesu is 9, then I can just change it in one spot. Okay. I hope you guys understand that, but we will look at it once we go to code.org. I just want you guys to keep it in mind. Okay, guys, and then our other new block that we are going to do today, our math blocks. Okay, let me just wait for the block to come up. Why is it changing so slowly? Let's just change my pointer back to the arrow, otherwise I make red dots everywhere. Okay, there we go. Guys, and then also inside our toolbox, we will see we have a new category for math blocks. Will also be available in our toolbox. And there we go, there we see it, math. There we go, and that is what it looks like. We'll use math blocks to account for any changes in our variables. Okay, so here we can add in any value we want. You can see the number blocks or the puzzle blocks. You can put them in here. Down here in your drop down, you will have all different kinds of options available to you, okay? Pluses, minuses, multiplication, and then we can assign certain values as well. And you might think, how are we going to use that? But we will see going forward. And I think previously we've had an example, or I spoke to you guys about an example. Think about if you write a code that writes a happy birthday card, and then every here you don't want to rewrite the code, you just want to change the values. Now in here we will assign, maybe we can say age, and we assign the age to 10, and then every here we just plus 1. So next year will be 10 plus 1. Then it becomes 11. So then every time we repeat this code, 11 will become 12, 12 becomes 13. So that is how we are going to implement our math blocks into our code. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. We're going to have some math blocks today as well. Okay, guys, now let's get to it. Let's see what we can do in code.org. So if you guys give me a moment, I am going to switch over and then I will share the link with everybody and then we can get cracking. So let's see. There we go. And then I'm going to copy the link for you guys quickly. There we go, guys. Link is in your chat box. Click on it. Once you are in, just let me know in or I'm ready here so that I can give everybody enough time to go through to code.org and then we will start. There we go. One day is in. Let's look at this in the meantime. I'm just going to read the instructions. Finish this code so that the bee can collect all of the honey and nectar. Okay, guys, let's solve this. Remember here, they also just show us you can find your variables over here and your math blocks. I'm just going to click that off. Let's get this function in here so we can have a look at it as well. Let's make this bigger so we can see what's going on. There we go. Now, guys, they have given us a bit of code already because they want us to figure out what exactly is going on here. Now, look at this function. It looks like a very difficult function, okay? Forget for a moment that we've set this gather block up here. If we look at our code, or if we look at our play area, what would we have done over here? We would have moved forward once, we would have moved forward twice, and then while we were here, we would collect. We would get nectar once, twice, then we would move forward again, make honey once, twice. Now, if we look at this code here, it looks like a quite a difficult code, but that is all it is. So let's go to our math block. I just want to give you an example. Forget about the gather. There we go. Say, for example, what would we have done? We would have moved forward, repeat 2 times. This is what I want you to imagine. Imagine the number 2. That's all I want you to imagine in here. What are we going to do 2 times? Move forward. 1, 2. Then it would put us on the flower. What are we going to do next? Repeat 2 times. Get nectar. Okay? Repeat 2 times. Get nectar. Okay. Then if we stand over here, what are we going to do next? We're going to move forward. There we go. We have a move forward. And then repeat 2 times, make honey. There's some honey and we will repeat that 2 times. But they don't want us to do this because imagine now these values change. Let's make this 5 and let's make this 5. Then we have to go to our code over here in our function and we have to go and change each one of these individually. We're going to have to change each and every one individually because now, for example, there would be 5 flowers, 5 honeycombs, and we have to go and change every value to 5, and that might take a long time. But here, they've got set gather to 2. So we've got a value, and we can see we're using the same value here 2 times. So what we will do, instead of having the value 2, we will put our variable in gather. And we will throw away the 2. Over here, we will put in our variable gather with the value of 2. It's still 2 because we see it up here. It's still 2. And then let's put in our variable here as well because it's also 2. There we go. Now, say for example, this becomes 5 and this becomes 5. I don't have to go and change every one. I can just come up here, change that to 5, and every gather will change to 5 automatically. Okay, so every one will change value to 5 automatically by itself. Okay, so that is what makes these variables so nice. We can set a value. If you use that, what can I call this? If you use that word or that, let's just say that variable that you set before, and then if you've used it throughout your code, doesn't matter how big it is, it will automatically change to the new value. Okay, we only want this 2 times. Now imagine it says here, repeat 2 times, move forward, repeat 2 times, get nectar, move forward, repeat 2 times, get honeycomb, and then turn left. That is our function for collect row. So that is just the first row. Now, if we look at our code, how many rows do we have? If you guys can quickly type for me in the chat box, how many rows do we have? We have over here, we have our first row. There we go, Zivanos first. He said we have 3 rows. 1 row over here, Zoe, well done. 1 row down here, and 1 row across here. So how many times am I going to repeat collect row I'm going to repeat that 3 times. And then in here, I will change that to a 3. Okay, so repeat 3 times, collect row. Here's our row, here's our row, and here's our row. Okay, and there's the function we've got. So don't be, because there are so many aspects in this functions. We've got loops, we've got commands, and we've got variables. And our variable here is a 2. Now let's run it quickly and see what happens. There we go, it runs through it. Okay, I hope you guys understand, because just looking at this function, it is so confusing having the gather in your code. But we have to remember that it refers back to what we set in the start. Okay, let's move to puzzle number 2. Oh, and I saw I missed so many answers. Taryn also answered, and One Day also answered. Well done, guys. Now, let's look at our function again. This is the same function, same puzzle. Same puzzle. Let me just make this a bit bigger. There we go. Same puzzle, same function. Now, all that they have done here is they have changed the values from 2 to 3. Okay, so look at the space. How far do I have to move? We have to make sure that all the variables change. Now, if we count, we're going to move 1, 2, 3. How many times are we going to collect? 3 times. How many times are we going to make honey? 3 times. So all aspects of gather has now changed from 2 to 3. We can just do that, change that to a 3. And Zivan told us that in the chat box also, gather needs to be 3. And let me just quickly share the link again. I see someone had some internet problems. I think it is Anesu. There we go, guys. There's the link again. Now our variable values have changed. Okay, so here we have 3 moves, 3 flowers, 3 pieces of honeycomb. So we can just go here, edit your solution in one place so that the bee can collect all of the honey and nectar. Okay, so all we needed to do was change that value over there. Very easy. Then we can run our code. See what happens. There we go. There we go. Well done, guys. Okay, so I hope if there's still anything that you guys don't understand just yet, please let me know. I do want us to be able to understand what's going on here. Okay, same puzzle, but our values and our distances have now changed. Okay, now we have to keep an open mind. And let me just share the puzzle again quickly. There we go. Now we have to keep an open mind. Let's see what actually changes. Okay, our function stays the same because we want to collect in a row. We still have 3 rows, although the rows now are a little bit shorter. The rows are shorter. And in each row, there's a different value. Okay. Now let's think about this. Let's read our instructions. Such an amazing garden. In this puzzle, each patch needs the variable to be 1 less than the patch before. Subtract 1 from the variable each time through the loop if you want to use the same function to solve this level. Okay, so they have given us a nice clue. We are going to use our math block now. And now all they say here is subtract 1 from our variable each time. Okay, so remember, how many times are we repeating this? We are repeating this 3 times. Okay, now every time we repeat it, we have to subtract 1. Every time we repeat, we have to subtract 1. So what are we going to do? We are going to go to our math category, and we are going to get a math block. Here we go. There's our math block. Okay, but what are we going to attach this to? What are we going to attach our math block to? Okay. Okay, Zivan said set gather 3 collect row, get gather 2 collect row, gather 1 collect row. Okay, guys, I want to show you here quickly. Now this, if we use our math blocks, we only have to add 1 line. What are we going to do? We are going to add this to, what do they tell us we have to subtract it from? What is our variable that changes? The value 3. It changes from 3 to 2 to 1. So let's get a variable block. Set gather 2. Okay, there's our set gather 2. I'm going to attach it at the bottom just so you guys can see nicely. There we go, set gather. And what do we have to do with that? Okay, so what are we going to set it to? Let's just take this whole block. We are going to change this value from 1 to gather, because what is our value for gather? Our value for gather is 3. And we're not going to take away the repeat block. We're going to leave the repeat block there because we are going to repeat it 3 times. We're still going to repeat 3 times. We don't want to change our code. So we're not going to take away our repeat. We're going to stay here, leave the repeat. We only have to do something to change the value every time we move on to the next row. So the first row, we are still going to do set gather to 3. We're going to do it 1, 2, 3, pick up 1, 2, 3, make honey 1, 2, 3. Now, after we've collected this entire row, what do we have to do? Now it changes to 2. So here we are going to write our code so that gather, how are we going to make it 2? Gather minus 1. So gather minus 1 is 3 minus 1 gives us 2. 3 minus 1 gives us 2. And that's what we want, because then it's going to go 2, pick up 1, 2, move forward, make honey 1, 2. And then remember when it repeats again, because now we have repeat 3 times. The third time it repeats, what is going to happen now? Now the gather was 2, so 2 minus 1 is 1. So every time we repeat our code, it minuses 1. So that is why we are going to leave our repeat. And this is our entire code. Look how short that is. For all these actions, we've got one function, and we've set a value of 3. Every time we collect a row, after we've collected a row, we repeat, but we minus 1. And where do we minus 1 from? We minus 1 from gather. And gather is 3. I hope you guys understand that and I see what's happening here. If you guys struggle with this, we will spend some more time on this. But let's see what happens now. I'm going to run step for step. So here's step. The first one, gather is 3. Okay, because here it is in our function block. So we're going to step once, twice, 3 times. What are we going to do now? We're going to collect nectar 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to move forward. That's all in our function. Move forward. And then we're going to collect honey 3 times, because gather is 3. 1, 2, 3. And then what is our last step in our function? Our last step in the function is turn left. Step, turn left. That is the first row. Now we are going to repeat. But when we repeat, we're going to use gather to gather minus 1. So that is only going to be 2 times. Okay, and I see Nesu did it. Well done. And then if I'm going to reset and I'm going to run. There we go. And that's why I say you have to think about what we are doing here. Now it's only going to be 2 times. Look at that. Now it's only going to be once. And if we did, we could have started at 10, but then our gather value needed to be 10, and we can loop 10 times, and every time it will be minus 1, minus 1, minus 1. Okay, so I hope you guys understand that. I think we have time for one more puzzle. If we don't finish, you guys can finish it for me for a homework puzzle. Let's quickly look at this. This is the code we've just done, but now it becomes more. It says, let's keep going. Edit the code to make it work for this puzzle. So there are 2 things we have to change here. What are the 2 things we have to change? Let's see in the chat box quickly. Who can tell me what are the 2 things we have to change in our code? Our function we don't have to change. We have to change something in our code. What do we have to change in our code? Let's see if anybody can spot. What do we have to change in our code? There we go. Zoe gave me 1 and Pulesu gave me the other one. Nice, guys. I see it. I'm going to give the others some time just to quickly see if they can spot it as well. And I've got so many hands going up. But before I want to speak to anybody or let anybody help me, I just want you guys to have a look at it for a little longer. What am I going to do? And I think my first hand was Taryn. So I will go to Taryn. She was my first hand. Then I'm going to see if she can help me. But I saw the answer already. I think half the answer came from Zoe and the other half came from, oh, I saw, okay, I see it's Pusaletso. Okay, there we go. So half and half. Let me go to Taryn. Hi, Taryn, how are you?
Fine, thanks, and you?
I'm great, thank you. So Taryn, tell us, there are 2 things we have to change. What are we going to change?
The first one, you go to set gather.
Okay, set gather.
To what?
There we go. Because remember, my first step is only 1 move forward, 1 get nectar, 1 honeycomb. So yes, my gather value will become 1. Okay, and then what is the other thing I have to change?
The other thing, you go to the math block.
Yes.
Where the second gather was.
Yes.
You go to where the symbols are, drop down and make it a plus.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Taryn.
You're
welcome. I'm going to run your code. Thank you. Okay, guys, there we go. Taryn told us we're going to change our gather value to 1. And I see Awande wants the pen. I'm just going to share the link, Awande. Then you don't need a pen. You can just go straight to it. Let me just quickly share it again. There we go. Okay, guys, yes. So great job. Thank you to Zoe. Thank you to Taryn. And also thank you to Pusaletso. Okay, guys, yes. So our gather first step is 1 and 1 and 1. But then every time we repeat, we want to add 1 because now we have 2 and now we have 3. There we go. So plus 1. Let's run that and see what happens. Beautiful. Look at that. All the way to the end. Great job, guys. Okay, so I think that is all that we are going to have time for today. We will finish this. We spent a lot of time explaining how this is going to work, but I see that you guys are starting to understand what's going on here. So here we also have quite an interesting puzzle. You guys can play around with it. All the variables change now. The spaces in between each one changes, and then each row changes in length. So the values change. So it is a tricky one. Have fun with it. Play around with your functions, variables, and conditions. See what you can come up with. We will carry on from this point then tomorrow. Okay, so let me go back to my slideshow. Guys, if you are able to solve it, send it to me. I love to hear from you and see what you guys came up with. There's my email address, mgeldenes81@gmail.com, and also our school's email address, stemdigitalschool@africateengeeks.co.za. Then I will see you guys again tomorrow, same time, same place. Well done, guys. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.